The person she trusted to protect her became the one who stripped her bare in her worst humiliation. In a silent room in Atlanta, Amina Rhodes stood in nothing but her bra and slip, watching her future mother-in-law smile as she passed the $8,000 gown to the woman who had slept with Amina's fiancé. The mistress laughed. The older woman said nothing. Amina's fingers trembled, but she didn't move. Love, pride, trust, they all tore apart like lace between her hands. But she didn't cry. She didn't beg. Instead, she stared at the two women and whispered just 6 words. And whatever she said was enough to make them both freeze. Because what they didn't know was this: Amina hadn't come here to win him back. She came to bury them both. If you've ever been underestimated, stay right here. This story will remind you how power sounds when it finally speaks. Amina Rhodes was 38, head of communications at a major firm in Atlanta. Her life was neat, predictable, and full of color. She had worked her way up from nothing, the daughter of a single mother who taught her to speak with grace even when people tried to silence her. Then she met him at a real estate conference. He was charming, confident, with that quiet authority successful men carry like a tailored suit. He said all the right things, asked about her dreams instead of her salary. He listened, or at least made her believe he did. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to soften. She laughed easily again. He made her coffee in the mornings and left notes on her desk. Amina told herself, maybe this is what peace feels like. Looking back, she would remember how quickly she trusted him, how willingly she let her guard down. At the time, though, it felt simple. It felt safe. And for a woman who had built walls around her heart, that safety was the most dangerous illusion of all. 6 months later, he proposed. It was at her favorite restaurant, soft jazz humming under the noise of crystal glasses. When the waiter brought out dessert, the ring glimmered against the dark chocolate. Amina froze. Then she cried, not from surprise but from relief. For once, she thought the universe had given her something beautiful without a hidden price. He whispered, "You're my forever." And she believed it with every heartbeat. Friends cheered, strangers clapped. The restaurant felt like a dream wrapped in candlelight. That night, she texted her best friend, "God finally sent me the right one." Later, she'd replay that message and feel foolish. But at that table, she felt chosen, loved, seen. The kind of happiness she had only planned for others in her marketing campaigns was finally hers. It would take months before she understood that some dreams are written to turn into lessons. The first time she met his mother, the air changed. Lorraine Hayes had the kind of smile that hid more than it revealed. Her eyes swept Amina from hair to heels, slow and deliberate. "Oh," Lorraine said finally, lips curved tight, "I didn't realize you were so urban." The word hung in the room like smoke. Malcolm laughed it off, saying his mother didn't mean anything by it. Amina smiled politely, the same way she had learned to at board meetings full of men who mispronounced her name. Lorraine talked about family, faith, and tradition. Every sentence was coated in sugar and judgment. Amina answered softly, choosing peace over confrontation. But under the table, her fingers pressed into her palm hard enough to leave half-moons. Driving home, she told herself it was nothing, just an awkward first meeting. Yet something deep inside whispered that it wasn't. She ignored it, because love makes people hope where they should see warning signs. The visits became routine, and so did the remarks. Lorraine always had a new observation wrapped in sweetness. "Your natural hair is brave. Your job must be so demanding. Poor Malcolm, he'll never see you. Your family's so lively. The neighbors must love that." Each comment landed like a paper cut, small but stinging. Amina would laugh softly, glance at Malcolm, waiting for him to defend her. He'd squeeze her hand and whisper, "She's just old-fashioned, baby. Let her be." So Amina swallowed her pride, one polite smile at a time. She told herself she was marrying him, not his mother. Still, every visit left her feeling smaller, as if Lorraine was peeling her confidence layer by layer. She began to notice the way Malcolm deferred to his mother, the quick nods, the eager approval. It unsettled her, but she tucked it away. After all, she thought, every family has its flaws. She had no idea just how deep those flaws ran, or how far they'd drag her down. Still, when Malcolm proposed setting a date, Amina told herself things would get better. They didn't. Wedding planning should have been joy, but for Amina, it became survival. Lorraine had opinions about everything: the flowers, the food, even the seating chart. She called vendors behind Amina's back and changed decisions already made. When Amina found out, Malcolm only sighed. "Baby, she just wants to help," he said. "You know how moms get. Help." The word made Amina's jaw tighten. This wasn't help, it was control dressed as care. But she let it go, one more time. She wanted peace more than victory. Every evening, she found herself rewriting plans, fixing what Lorraine had adjusted. She stopped sleeping, stopped smiling. Yet, when people asked about the wedding, she said it was perfect. Because that's what strong women do. They hold it together, even when the seams start to split. Still, in the quiet moments, she felt something shifting. Love was starting to taste like effort, and somewhere in that exhaustion, a small doubt began to whisper. If he can't protect me now, what happens later? The final fitting came a week before the ceremony. Amina stepped out of the dressing room and into the soft light of the boutique. The gown flowed like water, lace glimmering across her skin. For the first time in months, she felt beautiful again. Lorraine's expression curdled on sight. "It's a bit revealing, don't you think? A respectable woman should be modest." Amina met her gaze in the mirror. "This is my dress," she said. "My choice." The older woman smiled sweetly. "Of course, dear. Whatever you think is best." It sounded like surrender, but Amina saw something behind that smile: calculation. Later that night, she told Malcolm about it. He only chuckled. "She's fine. You're reading too much into it." Maybe she was. Still, as Amina hung the gown carefully in her closet, she couldn't shake the chill that crept up her spine. Something in her gut whispered that Lorraine wasn't finished. The last week before the wedding was chaos. Malcolm was busy with work, always rushing calls, staying late. His answers came slower, his tone distracted. Amina told herself it was stress, but the feeling in her stomach said otherwise. Her best friend, Tasha, noticed. "Girl, I don't like this," Tasha said over the phone. "You're planning a wedding by yourself while he disappears every night. Don't ignore that voice in your head." Amina laughed it off, trying to sound confident. "He's just overwhelmed." But that night, while reviewing the seating chart alone, she caught herself staring at his photo on her phone. Something about his smile suddenly felt hollow. For the first time since saying yes, Amina felt afraid. Not of losing him, but of finding out who he really was. The night of her bachelorette party, Amina tried to have fun. Music, laughter, a few glasses of wine. It should have been a release. But the unease never left. Around 10, she told the girls she was tired and decided to head home. Driving through the quiet streets, she rehearsed her vows in her head, forcing herself to believe in them. When she turned into her driveway, her heart froze. Malcolm's car was parked out front, though he'd said he'd be out with his friends. Next to it sat a white BMW she didn't recognize. Her hands gripped the steering wheel. For a full minute she sat there, the engine humming, her pulse louder than the radio. Maybe he came home early. Maybe someone borrowed the car. Maybe... She cut the thought short. Amina stepped out, keys tight in her palm like a weapon, and walked toward the front door. Inside, the house was quiet except for faint music upstairs. Then laughter. Light. Feminine. Too familiar. Amina's breath caught. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. Her body moved before her mind could stop it. At the bedroom door, she paused, hand trembling on the knob. The laughter came again, mixed with a man's voice. His voice. She pushed the door open. Sheets tangled, clothes scattered. Two bodies froze in the half-light. Malcolm turned first, face pale. The woman beside him didn't even flinch. Her hair spilled across Amina's pillow. In that instant, time split open. Every word, every promise, every dream shattered into dust. Amina stood there, silent, the world roaring in her ears. He started to speak, to explain, but she didn't hear a single word. Because in that moment, she understood. This wasn't just betrayal. It was the end of everything she thought was safe. For a long second, the room was nothing but silence and shame. Then he spoke. Malcolm scrambled for words, face pale, voice cracking. Amina, it's not what it looks like. Please, let me explain. The woman in his bed smirked, pulling the sheet higher. He told me you two were basically over, she said, lazy and cruel. The room spun. Amina's throat burned. Get out, she said quietly. Then louder, get out of my house. Malcolm reached for her arm. She stepped back. Take your lies with you. She opened the closet, grabbed handfuls of his clothes and threw them out the window. Shirts fluttered into the yard like white flags of surrender. He begged, stumbling over apologies. She didn't answer. Her silence was louder than his excuses. The woman stood, gathering her purse, still smirking. That smirk broke something in Amina. 5 minutes, she said, or I call the police. They left in a rush of slammed doors and shame. Alone again, she stood in the wreckage of her bedroom, surrounded by perfume that wasn't hers and promises that never meant a thing. Night swallowed the house. Amina sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest. Her phone buzzed endlessly. Texts from friends, reminders from vendors, calls she couldn't bear to answer. She opened the wedding planner app and began deleting. Florist, venue, catering. One by one, her dream unraveled with every tap. Tears blurred her vision. She wasn't just mourning a man. She was mourning the version of herself that believed love could protect her. Hours passed. The house grew still. She wandered through the quiet rooms, seeing ghosts of what should have been. His jacket on the chair, the invitation stacked neatly by the door. By dawn, her eyes were dry. The silence hurt more than the betrayal. It felt like standing inside a hollow version of her life. For the first time, she wondered if loneliness could be safer than hope. Morning light cut through the blinds when pounding shook the front door. Amina hesitated before opening it. Lorraine stood there, composed but sharp, her voice brisk. "We're here for Malcolm's things." Behind her stood the same woman from last night. Amina's heart clenched. "Fine. Take what's his and leave." But Lorraine didn't move toward his side of the closet. She walked straight to the gown hanging in its protective bag. "What are you doing?" Amina asked. Lorraine's hand tightened on the hanger. "This cost too much to go to waste." Amina reached out. "That's my dress." Lorraine pulled harder. The lace strained, threads snapping like nerves. Amina let go before it tore completely. The older woman smiled, victory glinting in her eyes. "We'll make sure it's used properly." They turned to leave. Amina stood frozen, hands trembling, heart pounding so loud it drowned the world. At the doorway, Lorraine paused and glanced back. "Savannah will wear it when she marries Malcolm properly," she said. "At least she knows her place." The words sliced deeper than the betrayal itself. Amina didn't move. She couldn't. Her body refused to react. Tears slid down her face, silent, relentless. They walked out together, the fabric trailing like a white ghost between them. The door closed, and the sound echoed through the empty house. She sank to the floor, gripping the edge of her bed. For a long time, she didn't cry out or curse their names. The quiet was heavier than any scream. Her chest hurt with the weight of what she'd lost. Not just a wedding, but her dignity, her sense of safety. Somewhere beneath that pain, something shifted. It wasn't forgiveness. It was survival, still buried under grief, waiting for air. That night blurred into morning. Grief slowly gave way to something sharper. Hours passed before Amina finally lifted her head. Her body ached from sitting on the floor too long, her throat raw from silence. The house was still, stripped of everything that had once felt warm. She reached for her phone and called Tasha. Her friend answered on the second ring. "Girl, what happened?" Amina's voice cracked. "They took my dress. They took everything." For a moment, Tasha didn't speak. Then her tone changed. Steady, sharp. "Listen to me. You're one of the best marketing directors in this city. You build reputations for a living. Why are you letting them destroy yours? Stop crying. Start planning." Amina blinked. "Planning what?" "Justice," Tasha said. "Market your own justice." The line went quiet. Amina sat there, replaying the words. Something in her chest shifted, a spark under the ashes. She stood up, wiped her face, and looked around. The house wasn't a battlefield anymore. It was evidence, and she was done being the victim of her own story. That night, Amina opened her laptop. Fingers trembling, she began pulling up everything: emails, bank records, text messages. She organized folders like a campaign launch, color-coded by betrayal. She found threads of flirtation hidden between work messages, receipts from dinners he never mentioned, a hotel charge on a weekend he claimed to visit his father. Each discovery cut deeper, yet made her stronger. Then came the Ring camera footage. Lorraine's voice outside one afternoon, whispering something cruel about that girl thinking she's one of us. Amina saved every clip, every file. She printed documents, laid them across the table like puzzle pieces. For once, she wasn't crying. She was calculating. Every hurt became data. Every insult became proof. When she closed her laptop, the clock read 3:00 a.m. Her eyes were burning, but her heart felt clear. She wasn't planning revenge out of spite. She was reclaiming her dignity, one file at a time. By morning, she had built a digital map of betrayal, but one folder stopped her cold: joint account statements. Scrolling through, she saw large withdrawals marked investment transfer. $25,000 gone. Her signature appeared on the authorization, elegant and perfect. Too perfect. Amina stared at the page. Her breath slowed. "He forged me," she whispered. Anger hit her like heat, not just at the theft, but the arrogance, to think she wouldn't notice, to believe she was too broken to fight back. She called the bank, confirmed the details, and hung up, shaking. He hadn't just stolen her love. He'd stolen her money, her name, her trust. The betrayal wasn't emotional anymore. It was criminal. Amina stood at the window, sunlight cutting across her face. "Fine," she murmured. "He wants to play business? Let's handle this like business." It was no longer heartbreak. It was war, and she was ready for the first strike. Amina spent the next day creating a new social account. No profile photo, no name, just a quiet handle: The Stolen Bride. She started small: a post showing a torn piece of white lace, a caption: "Some promises don't die, they rot." Another image followed: 2 wine glasses, one lipstick stained, one clean. Then screenshots, blurred text messages, a partial signature, a bank line labeled transfer. She never named them, never tagged anyone. The mystery was the point. Each post hinted at betrayal, theft, hypocrisy. People began to comment, asking for more. Some said it sounded like a movie. Others said it felt too real. Amina stayed awake for hours, watching the numbers climb. Views, shares, messages. She didn't smile, but her heartbeat steadied. For the first time since the dress was stolen, she felt in control. Every post was a piece of truth she'd been forced to swallow. Now she was feeding it back to the world, one bite at a time. The account wasn't about revenge anymore. It was exposure. And she knew exactly how far she'd let it go. By the end of the week, The Stolen Bride had gone viral. What started as whispers became outrage. Women in the comments wrote, "This happened to my cousin. This sounds like that real estate guy in Atlanta." Then someone connected the dots. Screenshots, church photos, a Ring camera clip with a familiar voice. Within hours, names flooded the thread: Lorraine, Malcolm. Amina watched the chaos unfold. It was like watching a storm finally hit the people who built it. Lorraine's church group turned on her. The same women she bragged to now messaged each other in shock. Malcolm's clients unfollowed him. His polished online image began to crumble. She didn't respond. She didn't gloat. She let the truth speak in the language it deserved: public silence and private panic. Each time she refreshed the page, another layer of her old pain peeled away. Justice, she realized, didn't always come from the courtroom. Sometimes it came from a screen and a million eyes finally seeing what you lived through. 2 days later, Malcolm's business partner, Kenneth, called. He'd seen the posts, recognized the evidence, and started digging. What he found broke the last illusion. Malcolm had faked client signatures, inflated numbers, pocketed commissions. The partnership dissolved overnight. Kenneth released a statement distancing himself from unethical behavior. Amina read it online, her hands steady. She didn't celebrate. She simply exhaled, as if setting down a weight she had carried too long. Malcolm called her 3 times that night. She didn't answer. The next morning, his face was off the company website. His name trended locally, not as a success story, but as a warning. Lorraine stopped appearing at church. People whispered when she walked into the grocery store. The social hierarchy she worshipped turned its back. For once, Amina didn't feel pity. What they lost wasn't just status or business, it was the thing they valued most: reputation. And for Amina, that was enough to keep going. The story wasn't finished yet. Justice had only just begun to breathe. Amina gathered every document she'd saved, screenshots, statements, videos, and placed them in 2 neat folders. One for the real estate licensing board, one for the police. Her hands didn't shake this time. At the station, she explained what happened, her tone calm and professional. She outlined the forged signature, the missing $25,000, the fraud. The detective listened carefully, eyes narrowing as he took notes. "We'll open an investigation," he said. "You've got a strong case here." Next, she submitted the same evidence to the licensing board. Within a week, she received confirmation that a formal review had begun. Each email she sent felt like reclaiming another piece of herself. The story that once humiliated her was now building a trail of accountability. When she finally closed her laptop, the fear that had clung to her for weeks was gone. She no longer felt like a victim waiting to be saved. She was a woman building her own justice, methodical, precise, unstoppable. And for the first time she smiled, not from happiness, but from relief that the truth was finally on record. While the investigation spread quietly, another storm erupted. Savannah's family learned everything from the news cycle. Her father, a respected attorney in the city, was livid. He confronted her in front of the family, voice low but sharp. "You got involved with a man under criminal review? You embarrassed us." Savannah tried to defend herself, but the evidence was everywhere: texts, photos, even footage of her walking into Amina's house. The family's reputation was at stake. Her father gave her an ultimatum: end the relationship or face being cut off completely. Within days, she left Malcolm without a word. Amina didn't need to see it to know it happened. She could feel the shift, the same way one domino knows when another has fallen. What had started as betrayal was now unraveling in public, and each collapse carried its own justice. Lorraine had taught her that power meant control. Now, Amina understood the truth. Power was simply the moment when your enemies destroyed themselves without you lifting a hand. By late summer, Malcolm's downfall was complete. His license was suspended pending investigation, and his office door bore a new name. Friends who once called him a rising star avoided him in public. His phone stopped ringing. His clients disappeared. He'd built his empire on charm and lies, and both had finally run out. Lorraine suffered her own reckoning. The church she ruled with gossip and grace voted to remove her from every committee. Her neighbors crossed the street when she appeared. Invitations stopped coming. For years, she had treated reputation like a crown. Now, it was a noose tightening slowly with each whisper. Amina heard about it all through quiet messages and screenshots. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Watching justice work was satisfaction enough. There was no gloating, no revenge speech, just balance restored. The same hands that once tried to erase her were now busy erasing themselves. And Amina, at last, could breathe in a world that finally looked fair again. Life had grown quiet again, steady in its peace, until the past came knocking. 3 months passed before she saw him again. The knock came on a quiet afternoon. When Amina opened the door, Malcolm stood there, thinner, pale, his once polished confidence stripped away. He spoke softly. "Amina, please, can we talk?" She didn't invite him in. He started anyway, words spilling like broken glass. "I made mistakes. I lost everything. You were right about all of it. I thought I could fix it before it got this bad." His voice cracked. For a moment, something in her chest ached. Familiar, dangerous pity. But then she remembered the dress, the lies, the forged signature. He kept talking about forgiveness, about second chances. "You're the only person who ever saw the real me," he said. "Please, help me get my life back." Amina folded her arms. "Why come to me now?" He looked down. "Because you're the only one who still matters." She almost laughed. Not from cruelty, but from clarity. The man begging on her doorstep wasn't the one she once loved. He was the wreckage of him. And mercy, she decided, was no longer hers to give. Amina let him talk until his excuses ran dry. When he finally stopped, she smiled faintly. "If you really want to make things right," she said, "put it in writing." Malcolm hesitated. "What do you mean?" "Write everything," she said. "What you did. The money, the forgery, the truth. I'll decide after that." He nodded quickly, desperate. She handed him a notebook and pressed record on her phone, the sound soft, unnoticed. For the next hour, he wrote. Words tumbled out, dates, names, confessions. Each line was a thread pulling his own mask apart. When he finished, she closed the notebook carefully. "Thank you," she said. "You've done the right thing." He looked relieved, maybe even hopeful. "Does this mean—" "It means," Amina interrupted gently, "that I finally have proof." His face drained of color. She didn't shout, didn't gloat. Control was quiet, and now it was entirely hers. A week later, another knock came. This time it was Lorraine. Her eyes were red, makeup smudged, a tissue clutched in her hand. "Amina, please," she began. "I just came to say I'm sorry. I was only trying to protect my son." Amina didn't answer. She stepped aside, letting the silence stretch. Lorraine tried again, voice trembling. "I lost everything. The church, my friends. People whisper about me in stores. You've punished us enough." Amina tilted her head. "Punishment," she said quietly, "is what happens when people face the truth." The older woman's tears slowed. Her voice hardened beneath the sobs. "What do you want from me?" "I want your version," Amina said. "Write it down. Every word, how it started, why you helped him, what you said about me." Lorraine froze, then nodded weakly. "If that's what it takes." As she took the pen, Amina watched her hands shake. The performance was over. What stood before her wasn't remorse. It was fear dressed as apology. And fear, Amina knew, always told the truth. 2 days later, they came together, mother and son standing on Amina's porch. Lorraine's eyes were hollow, Malcolm's face drawn. The proud family that once looked down on her now looked small, fragile. Malcolm spoke first. "We'll do anything, Amina. Just make it stop. Please." Lorraine nodded beside him, voice breaking. "You've made your point. We've lost everything. Have mercy." Amina studied them quietly. Then she said, "You want forgiveness? Write it. Every word. Everything you did. Leave nothing out." They exchanged glances, desperate. "If we do," Malcolm asked, "will you let us go?" She gave a soft smile. "You'll see." Inside, she placed 2 notebooks on the table. They wrote for hours, hands shaking. The sound of pens scratching through confession after confession. Lies uncoiled into truth, pride into guilt. When they finished, Amina closed both notebooks and stacked them neatly. "Now you've done something honest," she said. They looked relieved, hopeful even. But Amina's silence carried a different weight. The calm before the verdict. She didn't need to scream. The balance of power had already shifted. For once they were the ones waiting for mercy that would never come. That night, she slept for the first time in months. No nightmares, no noise, just peace, and a plan already forming. The next morning, Amina met with her attorney. She handed over the recordings, the signed statements, and every document she had collected. He skimmed the pages, eyebrows rising. "You've built an airtight case," he said. Within weeks, legal action began. The court reviewed the evidence: fraud, forgery, stolen funds, emotional distress. The verdict was clear. Malcolm was ordered to repay the $25,000 he stole and $50,000 more in damages. Amina sat quietly as the judgment was read. She didn't smile or clap. She simply breathed. It wasn't vengeance, it was correction. Outside the courthouse, sunlight hit her face. Reporters murmured nearby, but she kept walking, each step lighter than the last. That night, she returned home and opened the same notebook he'd once written his confession in. Across the first page, she wrote 2 words: Case closed. Justice, she realized, didn't roar. It whispered, and it never forgot. The fallout came fast. Malcolm's real estate license was suspended, pending a full investigation. Unable to find work, he took a retail job just to pay his debts. The man who once measured worth in cars and clients now counted hours and paychecks. Lorraine's exile deepened. Her church cut her off completely. The women who once sought her approval now avoided her gaze. In grocery aisles, she became invisible. Amina heard the rumors but didn't indulge them. She had moved forward, promoted at work, praised for her leadership through crisis. Therapy became her anchor, teaching her that strength wasn't silence. It was the courage to speak without fear. Months later, she met someone new. No grand gestures, no lies, just ease. They took it slow. She laughed again, genuinely this time. When she passed a bridal shop downtown one morning, she paused but didn't look inside. The reflection staring back wasn't a broken woman anymore. It was a survivor who had rebuilt herself from truth. Amina learned that kindness and endurance aren't the same thing. Being kind doesn't mean staying silent while others wound you. It means knowing when to walk away and never look back. She often thought about everything she'd lost: money, trust, the illusion of family, and realized she'd gained something greater: herself. In her journal she wrote, "When they go low, don't go high. Go smart." Because intelligence, she decided, was the most elegant form of revenge. Her story wasn't about payback. It was about reclaiming dignity, proving that the quietest women often carry the loudest truths. To the audience, her voice would echo like a promise. If you've ever been dismissed, humiliated, or told to stay quiet, share this story. Let it remind you that justice begins the moment you say, "Enough." The storm had ended, but its lesson remained clear. No one can steal from a woman who's learned her own worth.